Well, I think the statement was that there was some disappointment in the extension of the deadline, and there was not clear communication about why that needed to happen. And there was a number of stakeholders that were upset and felt that there were technologies that could be implemented that would accelerate the timeline. I think there may be sort of a confusion. The governor was talking about his disappointment over San Joaquin, and then the desire for more aggressive early actions should they meet the statute. And I just want to point out that I was in a number of meetings where early actions were discussed, and where I remember the Secretary and I asking about specific actions that could be added to the list. And Catherine Witherspoon suggesting that they couldn't be added for various reasons, all of which made sense to me. It was either too costly, they would interfere with other laws that were going to be needed, there was perhaps the technology wasn't available. So we at Cal EPA were getting the message that the Air Resources Board could really only implement the early actions that they themselves were recommending, and that it would be either economically or technically infeasible to move quicker, and that the burden on the staff would be overwhelming. And in fact, the board members concurred when they talked about, and during the early action hearing, there was a statement about, the statement wasn't, it's not technologically feasible. Most of the statements were the burden on the staff. That's not the kind of statement that comes from the administration. That is a staff recommendation. So I just want to clarify that yes, there was disappointment on the San Joaquin, and there was a desire for more transparency and a better understanding. Could we move faster? How could we move faster? And there was confusion around early actions, with the staff very clearly stating, the executive officer very clearly stating that the 3 is what we can do. And then the chair obviously desired to add more issues. And at the end of the day, something that I think we all agree with, the Air Board directed the staff to go back and look at other possible early action measures and come back and report. And Cal EPA is working with the Air Resources Board staff on, here are some of the issues we'd like you to look at, to add to that list. Please look at the list from the environmental justice community. So I think that what we tried to do that day was thoughtful and considerate, and as we move forward, we're trying to do that thoughtfully and considerately, or with consideration, and that I'm very pleased that Mary Nichols will be there to help us as we move forward, because this is just the beginning. We have a long ways to go.
Did you want to make a comment on that, Dr. Sawyer and Mr. Witherspoon?
I want to make a comment going back a little bit. Maybe I should interject it this time just to get the history on what's going on straight. During my first 6 months to probably the first year, Catherine was running most of the interference with the governor's staff. She's the one who went to the horseshoe, seemed like on a daily basis, and would come back to me and tell me what was wanted. And frankly, I was quite happy with that, because that allowed me to deal with the stakeholders, the people who wanted to see me and the staff, and to deal with bigger issues. But as they became very displeased with her, then I felt that the undue interference was beginning to occur. Perhaps 6 months ago is when it really got intolerable to me. They assigned a communications officer to Cal EPA at that time, who began writing press releases for me, including issuing a press release in which a quote was included that I had never said or seen. And I let that be known that that was really unacceptable, and to the fairness of everybody involved, that never happened again. And then as it's been mentioned already, my communications officer, an employee of the Air Resources Board for 22 years, was transferred. But he said it felt more like he was fired, but he was, in fairness, transferred. I was never contacted or consulted or even informed that he had been transferred. Other issues came up. One which particularly bothered me was that the governor's staff contacted my staff with a request on an emergency basis to be brought before the board to provide $5 million to Tesla Motors as an incentive to not to locate their family electric car production out of California. I thought this was bad policy because it would not be, we had the funds available, but ordinarily they would be issued on a competitive basis. The staff was ready to go ahead under an emergency two-day, I believe it's two-day, procedure to put it on the board meeting later that week, and I instructed them not to. I just felt it was bad policy. Then came the order on the 7th of May to fire Catherine Witherspoon. Again, I felt that it was not the thing to do, at least at that time, because we were in the middle of a number of important decision-making processes and very controversial issues, and it would be extremely disruptive. In addition to which, the executive officer serves at the pleasure of the board, and the issue must be brought before the board. And I was ordered to bring it before the board at the meeting later that month. I consulted with the sub-quorum of the board and determined that there was not an enthusiasm for doing this, and I refused to do so. And then I guess the final straw for me was the instructions and contradictory instructions received on the global warming early action list. I would like to add that when I spoke with the chief of staff, and she impressed upon me the importance of which the governor appropriately places on the implementation of AB 32, that the governor wanted the Air Resources Board to be in charge of AB 32 because all board members served at the pleasure of the governor. Now, I think this is a bit revisionist because, as I recall, and Catherine can fill this in, during the negotiation of AB 32, I believe that the governor's office wanted the Climate Action Committee to play a more important role.